Hi there, Simon here, and I'm back with a bonus video. You may remember my 3-part budget blaster series where I took a second-hand Nerf blaster and customised it to make it look like it came from Borderlands. Well, I had a second identical blaster and decided to use it to show my students at Confetti College in Nottingham how it's possible to take the same base and with a different design aesthetic make it look entirely different. So in this video, we're taking on a second post-apocalyptic world, the decayed retro-futuristic style of Fallout. Let's dive in. As before, my first task was to completely disassemble the blaster. I took out all its guts so I could get on to modifying it. I wanted to change the blaster's silhouette as much as possible, so my first big decision was to cut off that signature circular feature on the bottom of the grip. The raised section of the rear sight was also cut off in order to make the top of the blaster entirely flat. I filed off the various bits of lettering and legal text, and then did some more surgery to make the insides of the blaster barrel as flat as possible. I epoxied nuts and other chunks of metal inside the blaster to give it some weight. With that, I put the body back together. And with that done, I broke out the Foamex. I cut a lozenge shape and glued it to the bottom of the grip to cover that gaping hole. Then I set about creating a long box shape out of Foamex to fit over the top of the blaster. I sanded the bottom of the grip so that the Foamex and plaster of the grip blended together in a smooth curve. Next, I did some additional Foamex construction to square off the area at the top of the grip. This helped conceal more of the Nerf's original details and made the blaster appear more primitive in its construction. I cut some more Foamex shapes and glued them to the sides of the grip to hide more of the original Nerf details and once again simplify the look. Another little U-shaped piece of Foamex was used to cover some detail on the lower front of the barrel. This is where the fun really begins. The initial surgery is done and now it's all about creativity. But before we dive into the details, I'd love it if you could do me a quick favour. Hit that like button to help the video out, leave a comment with your favourite Fallout weapon, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more builds. Anyway, let's get back into it. Then it was time to rummage through my spare parts bins for found objects that could act as a barrel and really make the blaster feel like it belonged in the world of Fallout. As you can see in the top left here, I printed out some reference pics of classic Fallout hardware. I let those guide my ideas as I tried out various Greeblies. After lots of experimentation, I found some wall standoffs from old Ikea cabinets. I realised if I glued them to the top of the blaster, I could make them look like some kind of form of retro power transformer system, ideal for that Fallout aesthetic. For a ray gun feel, I found some kind of plastic hose coupling to make the barrel. And I discovered more interesting metal clips of entirely unknown origin that make some great detail pieces. Studying my reference, I wanted to replicate one of the fusion cells that acts as power packs for the energy blasters. As luck would have it, I had a large plastic knob with a metal bolt attached to it, which was the perfect shape for a fusion cell when coupled with a piece of PVC pipe. The next part of the build saw me creating holes in a channel in the back of the blaster to allow the fusion cell to be attached. Then I turned my attention to some visible wiring. I saw from the reference that this was a key feature, so first I added a wooden block to the front of the trigger guard and laminated it with Foamex. I glued a line of 4 nuts from Chicago bolts to the base of the new box to mimic what I was seeing in my reference, and then glued panels with metal washers on them to the side of the box. The final major element was the addition of a heating element that I salvaged from an old coffee machine with pen caps stuck over the end of its tubes. I felt the curves of this piece gave the front of the blaster a real kind of retro-futuristic vibe. And there ended phase 1, a completely different silhouette to the original Nerf, packed with lots of Fallout-y details. Before priming, I decided to apply some latex masking fluid to some of the metal parts. This would allow me to retain their real metal finish later on. After a coat of plastic primer and black primer spray, that magical moment arrived when a bunch of random parts suddenly begins to look like a real object in its own right. Grabbing my Warhammer paints, I dove in first with metallics. Then I used the perfect dark olive colour for Fallout, Deathcore drab base paint, and finally Doomball brown for a couple of sections on the body of the blaster to break things up. Off camera, I applied a printed paper wrap to the fusion cell and a couple of paper chevrons to the body of the blaster. Then I went outside to hit it all with a satin clear coat spray. After gluing in place a network of wires into the various holes I'd drilled, it was time for the paint chipping. As seen in my previous Nerf blaster build video, this was just a matter of simulating chips and dings with a brush on all the high spots. Then it was the magic of dirt washing with thinned down acrylic paints. And finally, picking out some more metallic highlights that would have been dulled during the process. So there we have it, my budget Fallout blaster. No 3D printing required, no fancy paints, just the perfect atomic blaster for survival in the Commonwealth, or at least in your next Comic-Con. And here it is next to its Borderlands brother. Same base blaster, but a completely different silhouette and production design. 2 second-hand Nerf blasters cost me a grand total of £13.69 on eBay. That's just over $18 if in the USA. So I'll consider that incredibly good value for the many hours of fun and interesting challenges in making them. Time for me to go back to making something Star Wars next. Thanks for watching, and remember, you don't need fancy tools or expensive parts to make something great. You just need a bit of imagination and a willingness to try. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye-bye.